Hello, I'm Paddy from Creative Media, and today, for a change, I'm going to be doing a tool review. I like collecting firewood for my stove behind me here, and our road is full of people doing building work, and there's always loads of bits of wood lying around, but often they're the wrong length to go in here. So I need to cut them down to size, and I've been doing a lot of sawing, just saw, and it's getting a bit tiring, and particularly big chunks like this. Yes, I know it's best to split the stuff with an axe. I do have a splitting axe, but this stuff just refuses to split. You can see the big holes in it here. I've been trying to bash it with my splitting axe. I just can't get it split, so it requires sawing into chunks to make it into a sensible size. And that is getting really tiresome using a saw, and I have to clamp it into some kind of saw bench to saw it. As you can see here, it tends to go all over the place if I try and saw it up with a bow saw or with a conventional rip saw carpentry thing. So I thought I need some kind of electric saw, ideally electric, not petrol, because I'm just not good enough at looking after petrol engines, and they tend to stop starting after a while. I'm just going for hours and getting in a mood. And I don't use them a lot. I sort of spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes sawing up some things. Then I want to put it away and not have to think about refilling it with petrol, getting mixes of petrol and oil and all that complication. So I wanted something electric, and I started looking at various circular saws, band saws, electric chainsaws. The chainsaws seemed a bit scary in that you really should be using some kind of protective gear. They can kind of do all kind of nasty things where they leap out of the cut and attack you, chop your head off, etc. I wanted something a bit more genteel. I also read about circular saws, which I thought would be just the thing, until I read about somebody who chopped their thumb off with one, and I could do with my thumbs, I need them. So I looked around a bit more, and I came across the alligator saw, which I thought I've just got to have an alligator saw because it looked just the thing. There's two kinds of things called an alligator saw. There's one which has kind of jaws, and it's got like a kind of chainsaw mechanism, so it grabs a log, saws through it, and keeps it in place. This is the other kind of thing called an alligator saw. This is a DeWalt DW390, and it's also called a reciprocating saw, which means it's got not just one set of blades, but two sets of blades next to each other. These blades effectively go like this. So while one's pushing, the other one's pulling, and vice versa. The great thing with this, if I were chopping off my arm, for example, a conventional saw would be pulling it back and forwards as you pulled it, so you'd need to kind of clamp it in position so you could saw away. This one is pulling and pushing at the same time, so that's how the reciprocating saw works. Two sets of blades cost about £10 if you're going to do a lot of cutting and you're not concerned about the noise, and you're willing to learn how to use one safely and get the right protective equipment. Yeah, go for a chainsaw. This cuts a lot more slowly, but as you can see, you can bring it in the house. It's not all oily. You are supposed to oil these blades every time you use them, which I will do again quite soon. But it's quite a practical thing. You can lift it up in one arm. It comes with a decent length of cable. This particular model comes with a normal, this is normal for UK anyway, a normal plug to plug into the wall. So you can just plug it straight in, a bit like a hedge trimmer, but you can cut through logs and chunks of wood with it. So what's it like to use? It'll cut a fairly straight line, because I particularly wanted something I could use for DIY as well as for cutting up chunks of rough wood. It cuts quite a wide hole, not as wide as a chainsaw, but probably about 3 or 4 millimetres wide, and it'll be a bit wobbly because the saw does wobble around. Maybe a brand new one is a bit less wobbly than this one, I don't know, but that reciprocation does mean it's going to be shaking somewhat. I bought this one second hand for £50. They cost around 300 new, but if you look out on the second hand markets, you can probably get hold of one. Using it is quite pleasant. You press down that safety button and then pull in the trigger. It's just got one speed, off it goes, and I'd recommend using some ear protection. It's about as loud as a hammer drill, so it's not deafening, but it's a bit noisy. There's no lock-on thing. You just push that in and start going, which is a good idea because if you let go, you want the thing to stop really, not to fly around chopping off arms and legs. Comes in a very fetching yellow colour. It's got very nice handles. You can kind of hold the top to give it some pressure when you're cutting, or hold it sideways. It feels very sturdy. Comes with this built-in Allen key for when you need to change the saw blades. That just sits in there, and it hasn't shaken loose when I've been using it. It stays nicely positioned in there. What else? This one runs on 240 volts, and it's got a 1350 watt motor in it, so it's quite powerful. There is one other reciprocating blade not made by DeWalt on the market, which has a much shorter blade than this one, and it didn't really seem big enough to cut through the kind of big chunks of wood I wanted to cut through. It's taken quite a while to cut through, and it's also getting very hot. You can see all this smoke coming up. The great thing was I could just put my big chunk of wood on top of a picnic table. Didn't need to clamp it in position. I could just start sawing straight away into it. There's no sense being a glutton for punishment. I'm going to use a wedge and split this log when I can. If you're just doing a little bit of cutting, probably a normal woodworking rip saw or a bow saw is enough for your needs. For things like, cutting up a couple of pallets to put into your fire, one of these is just really handy. You can stand the pallet up, kind of gradually cut through all the bits of it and turn it into sensible fire-sized firewood. It works okay on damp wood as well. I've used it on, freshly cut logs. It steams quite a lot, but it cuts through okay. Doesn't like nails. I hit a few nails and teeth broke off on an old blade. I don't know how long the blade will last, but this second hand one I bought, I used the original blades on it, which must have been used quite a bit already, and they cut pretty well. They cut just about as well as these. And you've got the versatility that you can cut straight lines, you can get different blades to cut fine wood or rough wood, and also through chunks of stone. There's also a blade which cuts through fiberglass insulation. So if you've got a big roll of fiberglass insulation, you can cut off a strip of that, just cut through the whole roll in one go. You can probably do that with some kind of handsaw as well, but yeah. This also kicks out quite a lot of sawdust, so you'll end up with quite a lot of sawdust all over the place, but probably not as much as a chainsaw, but more than a handsaw. Make sure you get the model that has a normal mains plug on. There's another kind which has the plug which builders use. I think it's a 110 volts transformer. And if you've got to buy one of those as well, that's a great big chunky heavy yellow box which you need to carry around with you also. So yeah, the DeWalt DW390, and there's a new model which I can't remember the name of, which looks very much the same but is maybe slightly different. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your sawing and DIY projects. If you've got any comments, keep them pleasant, but make them below. Cheers!